Hey, in this video you will learn the basics of CSS for web developers. The basics of CSS for web developers. So what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. That's CSS. Okay, CSS. Okay, so that's what the acronym means, but what does it do? What can you do with CSS? Why is CSS important? Well, right here on the right, you can see a page. It has three elements. It has a header, has a paragraph, and it has a link. And you see it looks very basic. Why? Because it doesn't have any CSS. So what CSS does is it adds style. It adds things like colors. It adds things like positioning. So we can say if we want this center, if we want some margins and paddings around this header, or we want a different font size, or a different font family, different font type. Maybe we want this to look like an actual button with a background and some radius, border radius. That's like, you will see, it will look like an actual button. All of these things happen with CSS. I'm going to show you an example. Here's what I mean. You see, I enable the CSS I prepared for this video, and the page looks like this once we add the CSS. So now we have a different font. This is a sans font, is sans serif font. And then we have the actual link looking like a button. And you see it has border corners. And it has a background that's blue. And the color of the text on the button is white. So all of these things are done with CSS. And that's why we use CSS. CSS allows you to actually create the design for your website where HTML is the content of the website. With HTML, you say, okay, we have a header and it has this content, it has this text, or we have this image, or we have this link. So that's HTML. But with CSS, you are giving the style, the design to the website, saying, okay, I want this to be white, I want this to be blue, I want this to be this specific font size in pixels or some other unit. Okay, so having said that, how do you actually use CSS? What does CSS actually look like? Well, there are mostly three ways that you can include CSS into your websites. One of them is to include this link, style sheet. So this line of code right here, this includes, so if you are a Ruby developer, this like doing require, right? You are bringing in another file into this file. So this is an external file that has the CSS code that we want to use. And this is going to be, and this is the actual code for this page. This is going to be the main way that you use CSS. Using Rails, you're going to have You don't need to include these files explicitly. You will do this through something called the asset pipeline. That will take care of your including all of these files into your HTML. If you are not a Rails user, well, you probably have to do this manually, or it might depend on your framework. So that's the main way to do it, but there are other ways to include CSS into your pages, as you will see right now. So if I take this out, you see we go back to the basic base design with no styling, no CSS. Now we have two other options, and it's important that if you want to be a professional web developer, then you understand all of the ways that you can use CSS. The second way is to use the style tag. So the style tag allows you to embed or include the CSS code directly into your HTML. So basically I can take on any of this CSS code right here, which I will explain in a moment, inside this CSS style tag. and then it will be the same as the external file, right? So you will see it takes effect immediately because it's inside this style type. So that's the second way to include CSS in your pages. And the third way is called inline CSS. Inline CSS. So how does that work? Well, inline is what it sounds like. I can take any CSS, any HTML element, because CSS is applied to HTML elements, like the header H1 or the paragraph P, and we apply the CSS that we want directly to this tag. How? Let me show you. So let's say that we want to make this text bigger. So that means we want to change the font size. So we can say style, like this. And here I write my CSS. So the CSS is a list of attributes that are available. You can find a list of these attributes if you search for them. And one of them is font size. And we can specify the font size in different units. The simpler unit that you can use is pixels. So you can say, for example, 50 px, 50 pixels. And you see right here on the right that it changed, right? It changed the size. And we can do 120 and you see it becomes very big, right? There are other units that are not pixel, like EM, like this. And these are relative units, but that's a little bit more advanced and probably for another lesson. So px is the size in pixels. You can also change the color. For example, can change the color. All of these are CSS attributes, and we can do, for example, silver, or you can specify a color in the RGB format, which is red, green, blue format. And that looks something like this. And you can find a color picker, like a little tool that you can pick the color visually. It's like a color wheel. And you pick the color and it gives you this value that you can put in here. So that's RGB color. And that's what you can do with CSS. And that's called inline CSS. Inline CSS. Notice that inline CSS has or takes priority over rules, CSS rules applied from an external file or a style tag. So if I have a style tag here, and I say H1, so I want to target this color selector. Okay, so this color selector. This color selector. Selectors is how you say, okay, this is what I want to change. This is what I want to style. So if I say here H1, I want the color to be silver, and you can see it changes. But if I now go here into the inline style, say I want the color to be white, it changes. And of course, because it's white, we can't see it. But if I say here I want the color white, and here I say the color black, you see black takes preference. So the inline style always takes preference over the other styles, which can be a little bit of a problem sometimes. Okay? So what ways can you select an element to style? So the main way is to use the tag name. This will change all of the H1 tags. So right here, if I say I want this font size to be 50 pixels, this means that for every H1 that I have on my page, all of them will be 50 pixels of font size. That's what this is saying. And the same for the paragraph. All of my paragraphs will have font size of 50 pixels. But that's not always what you want. Many times you only want to change one thing. So you might have multiple paragraphs, or you might have multiple anchor links. multiple links on your pages, but you only want to make this look one way and the other anchor link another way. Let me show you what I mean. Another button. So we can see an example right here. So now let's say I change the anchor link like this to be like that. And you see these both are big. Both are 50 pixels. I only want to change one of them. How do I do that? Well, you can use a class. So you see this that says class button. That's like giving this a name. We're giving a name to these elements, these HTML elements. So I can change this. Now I can use the name. And the name, notice that it's different. You have to preset or put before the name this little dot. This means we are working with a class. And this comes from here. It says class, right? So button in front means class. If you see it like the hash symbol, this means ID, which looks like that. Okay? So now notice that one is big, the other is small, because we are only changing one of them. Okay? So now if I go back and I import my file, I have right here this file. I can do like that with a link tag, then basic CSS. There it goes. Now we have another button. It still looks like the base link, and the button, actual button, looks normal, right? And maybe we want to make little change right here, because we see there are two together. They almost touching each other, the button and another button. And we can add a margin top, margin bottom of 20x, and that we separate them. So margins are the external space between the elements, and then it's also padding, which is the space inside the element. So let me demonstrate that quickly. This is the space inside the element. As you see, the button was made bigger, but inside, meaning the content of the button and the size of the actual button. But if I change the margins, that means use the space between this element and the other elements. So that's the difference between padding and margin. Margin is the internal space. Margin is like external space. Okay, so that covers the basics of CSS. I know that's a lot of information if you're new to CSS, but if you can watch this video a few times, take notes and practice. And find yourself some list of CSS attributes. But in here you have some of the basics like width, margin. You also have things like font family, text align. This one makes the text to be in the center. The font size, padding, margin, border radius. This one gives you this corner, border corner. Space. This how round the borders are. So you can make this 20 pixels and make this super round, as you can see right here in the page on the right, or less rounded. Okay, if that's a word. This is the color of the text, and this is the color of the background. And that's text decoration, which means this is for the line under the text. Okay? So that's your basic attributes. Of course, there are more attributes, more things to learn, but first you want to master the basics. I hope you found this video helpful. Please click the like button for me so I know that you like this video and so more people can find this video and benefit from it. If you want to learn more, watch more videos right here in my channel right now. You will find a lot of videos to help you improve your web development skills and your programming skills so you can become a professional Ruby developer. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and enable notifications so you don't miss on new videos. And finally, visit my website, rubyguides.com. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.